Fertilizing the lawn in the fall or any other time of the year can be tricky, or it can be very, very simple. Going the simple route usually means that you're putting down synthetic fertilizers or things that are kind of semi-synthetic. In this video, I want to go through a handful of synthetic or semi-synthetic fertilizer programs that might be worth looking into for your fall application. These tend to be some of the cheaper applications, and even though they are cheaper, you can make them a little bit more complex or simple, depending on what you care about. Let's take a look at some of these products I have on the lawn behind me. All right, going into this video, I want you to understand that my lawn is not fertilized with almost anything that you see here. I do use a couple of these, but not many of them. This is all an organic lawn. With a synthetic fertilizer, a purely synthetic fertilizer is something that uses ammonium sulfate or something very, very similar to it. I'm going to call a semi-synthetic fertilizer something that is based on urea. Now, many products that you're going to find in big box store bags are going to combine a little bit of urea with a little bit of ammonium sulfate, and they're going to kind of marry them together. And the reason for that is ammonium sulfate is water soluble. It's going to go down into the lawn and instantly become plant available, whereas urea needs to be broken down a little bit by soil microbes, so it does work a little bit slower. Now, what you're also going to find out, if you actually look at the label on some of these bags, there are different forms of urea. So there's straight urea like this, or if we take a look at the back of this bag, you're going to find that we've got urea and we got polymer coated urea. So polymer coated urea is going to be the same thing as this, except for it's coated with a stuff that allows it to become plant available slower. This right here, if you put it on the lawn, the urea will go to work, let's call it in 5 to 6 days. And then the polymer coated urea might go to work in the grass maybe about 5 to 6 days later. If you had some ammonium sulfate in the mix, that would go to work probably the next day. So this is all hypothetical, but if you mixed all three of those things together, this would go to work on, let's say, day 1 to 2. This would go to work on day 6. And this would start going to work on the polymer coated would start going to work on day 12. That's all hypothetical. Now, there's another form of urea, which I can show you in this product from Get Sunday. There's their urea. But if we come down, we see we've got urea ammonium nitrate, and then here we go, urea triazone. Urea triazone is similar to the polymer-coated urea in here, in that it's a form of urea that takes longer to start acting in the soil. So this product right here is heavy on nitrogen and has almost nothing else in it. But the urea is distributed into different categories of how fast they go to work. Now, if we go and we take a look at probably one of the most common products that you find on big box store shelves and even grocery stores, this product right here is a 3204. The nitrogen is of roughly half urea and ammonium sulfate. The potassium, the small amount of potassium in this, the 4% right there, comes from potassium sulfate, or sulfate of potash, which ironically is an organic OMRI listed form of potash. Now let's move over to the fall version of Scott's Turf Builder. What's in this one? This one, unfortunately I got some tape on it so it's harder to see, but it's 32010. Here we got urea, it's the same urea mix, and potassium sulfate. So it's basically just got more potassium sulfate, sulfate of potash. So this product right here is actually the product that I would recommend over this one 100% of the time, because a healthy lawn does not need only nitrogen, it also needs potassium. Potassium is one of, I like to call it, part of the immune system of the grass. If you've got an adequately nourished lawn full of potassium, then it's going to be able to stand up to all of the rigors of life. Cold during the winter, hot during the summer, drought conditions, extra wear and tear from kids or dogs. You need potassium. But with that said, let's move over to the other turf builder. This is the product, this is one of the most common products probably anyone buys. Anyone who really wants to improve their lawn at some point is probably going to buy a weed and feed. Now there's other varieties, other brands. Here's another brand, which I'm going to get into later. That's the Bio Advanced Weed and Feed. But let's talk about this one first. This particular bag is not going to be good for some warm season grasses. However, they do make a weed and feed for those grass types. Let me just prop it up here so I don't spill it. Now let's get down low. So here we go. This one is a 2803. And this also has that same stuff, methylene urea, potassium sulfate, and ammonium sulfate. It's the same nitrogen sources and potassium source. There's not very much potassium in there, but there is at least a little bit of it. But what makes this a weed and feed is not the feed part, it's the weed part. Let's flip it around. The weed part down here is 2,4-D and Micropop P. And what's interesting about that is by combining those ingredients together, you are forced to use a very precise amount of weed killer and fertilizer at the same time. You're forced to. So I don't like the weed and feeds. I do understand that they are a good option for someone who just doesn't care enough to apply any more than one product for every 6 months. If that's you, then go for it, because the best time in the world to do that for most places across the country is probably somewhere around the first week of October. I have an entire video about that. What I truly recommend for most people to do if they want to have a better performing lawn area, a whole scenario, is to separate the two out. You need to kill the weeds first, and then later you're going to come in and prevent new weeds from coming. So you kill the weeds, let's call it early September, and then early October you're going to prevent the winter weeds, the ones that you see at the end of winter and the beginning part of spring, and you're going to be fertilizing throughout the whole thing. You're literally going to get significantly better results by doing that, but it's more complicated. But if you want to take that more complicated route, it's still not really much more expensive. Let's take a look. The easiest thing is run off to the store, probably the grocery store, and buy something like this. This is empty. I've actually used it. But something like this, it doesn't have to be the brand, but anything like this is just a spot spray. You just grab it and you find a weed like that, and you just spray it and you kill it. This is significantly more expensive if you're going to go over an entire lawn area than it is to buy a concentrate like this. Now, this Triad Select is what I use, but there's plenty of other concentrates. And if you look closely at labels, you can see this one is 2,4-D conchloric dicamba sulfentrazone. This one right here is 2,4-D dicamba MCPA, but there's no sulfentrazone. Sulfentrazone is what products like this use to make the plant look like it's dying faster than it actually is. So I actually don't really think of sulfentrazone as a very handy ingredient, but some people do. Something like this, you're going to be able to mix your own self and put it into your own tank sprayer, or even your own little pump spray bottle like this, if you really want to go down that route. And you're going to be able to cover a lot more ground for a lot less money. Now, the bottle itself costs more than this, but you'll probably have to buy 10 of these bottles compared to one of those. So that's why I suggest it. So I suggest killing weeds early in the fall season with this product or something like it. And the reason you do it early is because you want to do it before the weeds start going to seed. Now, later in the season, you're going to use something like this. This is Barricade. It doesn't have to be this product, but Barricade uses prodiamine. Prodiamine is a weed, or I should say a seed stopper. It stops seeds from germinating. In this case, we're talking about weed seeds. This you're going to be using on your lawn when the soil is dropping below 70 degrees. Usually that's at the end of September, first parts of October. Of course, different areas of the country, it's going to be at a different time of year. Point being is you want to kill weeds before you prevent weeds most of the time. And that's why a product like this is interesting, because this prevents and kills, but you have to apply it at the same exact time. And usually, you're going to get better results than doing nothing by doing that, but if you separate the two, your results will be better. This is the Bio Advanced, so you get the weed and feed. Here we got, this one actually uses dithiopyr as the weed pre-emergent, or the weed stopper. But if we flip it over to look at the feed portion of it, here we're looking at, again, urea, sulfur. So we're doing urea, methylene urea, sulfate of potash, and that's it. That is it's a 2204 product. So again, you're not getting very much potash with this, and you're not getting any phosphorus with this. And the thing is, if you're going to put a weed and feed down, regardless of the brand, here my thing popped off. Regardless of the brand, You can't put this down multiple times because of the weed and the pre-emergent aspects of the Scots or the BioAdvance or any other brand that you're looking at. And usually in the fall time, especially for cool season lawns, that's when we're going to be putting down the most amount of nitrogen throughout the course of the year. Fall cool season lawns is a time of root development and growth. For warm season grasses, you can still put down nitrogen into the lawn, but you're not going to be putting down like multiple rounds, and your heaviest applications of that is really going to be kind of from May through September. By the time October rolls around, you're really slowing down in most places. But cool season lawns can go very easily all the way into the early weeks of November. So for those areas, you're really going to be wanting to shoot for, in most grass types, you're going to be wanting to shoot for somewhere around 1.5 pounds of nitrogen over the course of the fall season. And with the weed and feed products, you can only apply it once because of the weed and or the weed pre-emergent aspect of the product. So you can't put it down twice. And if you put it down once, you're not getting anywhere close to 1.5 pounds of nitrogen throughout the season. So you're still going to have multiple products. Another thing to be said for all of these products is because they are synthetics or semi-synthetic products, talking about urea here, is you're not getting any micronutrients, you're not getting any trace elements, you're not getting any amino acids, you're not getting any natural biostimulants, nothing. You're not getting anything with these products whatsoever. So if you actually want your lawn to look its best year-round and hold up to the stresses of life, then you can't just rely on nitrogen with a little teeny tiny bit of potassium. You need more. You need micronutrients, and you need a little bit of biostimulants. And that adds complexity to the thing. So usually to do that, you have to find micronutrients. Now, this is a product that I've used a handful of times. There are granular versions as well. One of the ones that I'm really interested in trying is the Southern Ag Micronutrient Granular Blend. I don't have it here, so I can't show you. But in terms of biostimulants, cytokinins, which are found in products like this or anything that says sea kelp on it, usually has some cytokinins. This is probably more potent. Things like that increase rooting and tolerance to stresses. Let's just generally put it as tolerance to stresses. So once you start fertilizing for things like that, you have to account for the extra cost, or just know that you're going to struggle a little bit more during the harsher seasons of the year. You're going to have to use more water during the summer. You're going to have to plan on using fungicides and plan on having like weak spots. I mean, I still have weak spots here. So you're just going to have to deal with that. My advice for anyone looking to go down the synthetic route, no matter how you do it, it is literally going to cost you less money. You can just buy just a single thing of weed and feed, put it down one time on October 1st, maybe late September, and you'll be fine. You're not going to have the best lawn on the block, but it'll be pretty good. If you separate it out and you try to kill weeds off earlier and you fertilize multiple times throughout the fall and put down your pre-emergent kind of in that mid-fall time frame, especially if you're able to put down some micronutrients and some biostimulants on the lawn, it's going to be amazing. It really is. It's going to be amazing. But the more amazing you want it to be, the more complex it has to become. Understanding how the various sources of nitrogen, how fast they act in the lawn is important. All of these sources are high on the salt index, which means you can't really put like a ton down all at once. Otherwise, you're going to burn your lawn. You have to distribute them out into little increments. With organic products, you can put a big heavy dose down once and kind of be done with it for a long time. With these products, you have to put smaller doses down more frequently. They act much faster, and you're going to notice them acting much faster, but you can't put a ton down. You have to put small increments. And that's where, if you've ever heard the term of a nitrogen blitz, that's where that comes from. Just imagine putting down 1/4 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet on your lawn every week to 10 days for 2 months straight. Just imagine going through the effort of applying to the lawn that many times in a month and a half to 2 months. One of the ways around that is to put down a product that combines a few of these products. Like I said in the very first part of the video, ammonium sulfate will start working somewhere on day 2. Urea will start working somewhere on day 6 to 7. Urea trizone or coated urea might start working closer to day 10 to 12. So if you get a little bit of each one, you could, in theory, put down a little bit of a heavier dose at once and get a longer effect. So maybe you could get away with applying fertilizer to the lawn a couple times. And then with urea, you really need to be watering that in very quickly. Now, some of these urea bags tell you, or the fertilizers that are based on urea, they tell you to water it in within X amount of days after application, or wait for rain within X amount of days. In my experience, it needs to be watered in immediately, like within half a day. The reason for that is urea specifically will start gassing off if you don't water it in right away, which means you're applying fertilizer to the lawn that is not ever used by the lawn itself. It has to get watered into the soil, otherwise it turns into nitrogen that goes up into the atmosphere. All waste. Now, the last parting thought that I want to leave you with today is winterization towards the end of fall. It's a fertilizer application that usually gets put down mid to late fall, depending on your weather and where you live. If you are going to winterize your lawn, you have multiple options. And in my opinion, synthetics and urea are only options in certain circumstances. Let me move back into the sun here. It's a somewhat complicated topic, but it's also not like, this is very easy to understand if you start researching it just a little bit. I have an entire video about winterizing your lawn right up here. And in that video, I don't push synthetic fertilizers very hard at all for winterization. Also up here is my video about the most forgettable lawn application of the year. If you're going to be fertilizing your lawn in the fall, you should probably consider doing this too. This is the thing that most people forget about.